Now we bring you our top headlines for the morning. Pharmaceutical companies to stop supplying drugs to patients on the National Health Insurance Scheme. University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, to join striking polytechnic lecturers over the scrapping of their book and research allowances. And police urge public to cooperate with impending road closures from today and tomorrow, as we are going to have the mid-year ECOWAS summit to be hosted by the chairman of ECOWAS, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Well, so we bring you the details of the news now. The Ghana Chamber of Pharmacy has warned it will cut supply of drugs to health service providers who depend on the National Health Insurance Scheme to pay for their drugs effective next month, August 1, 2014. Spokesperson for the Chamber, Enezo Usuabuaji, says members of the Chamber cannot continue to supply health facilities that are indebted to pharmaceutical companies. According to him, the situation where the Health Insurance Authority delayed payment to the health insurance service providers creates huge challenges for the pharmaceutical companies. And as Abuaje further emphasized that pharmaceutical companies will be compelled from August 1 not to supply to any facility that owes them more than 2 months in arrears. The Christian Health Association on July 1 withdrew services to subscribers of the National Health Insurance Scheme because managers of the scheme owed the mission hospitals in excess of some 50 million Ghana cedis. In the education sector, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, well, they've indicated they will soon join striking polytechnic lecturers if government fails to pay their research and book allowances for the period 2013-2014 academic year. President of UTAG, Dr. Samuel Opoku-Bekwin, told the news team they've been angered by comments by the Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary institutions, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, that government did not owe lecturers any research and book allowances. He said they have been directed by the National Labour Commission to go for voluntary arbitration in dealing with the matter, and that's what they're currently waiting for, adding that if they are not given the materials to go and teach, they will stay out of the lecture halls during the period. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa stressed at a press conference on Tuesday that government did not owe lecturers any allowances, but POTAG rebutted the claims on Wednesday on Joy News, calling his statement a palpable lie. The head of Motor Transport and Traffic Department of the Ghana Police Service, ACP Awoni, has urged the public to cooperate with the police over impending road closures from today for this weekend's ECOWAS summit. He was speaking at the Flagstaff House, where he joined a media briefing on measures put in place to ease current inconveniences likely to be experienced by the motoring public.
ACP Awuni says it is in the country's interest to ensure the safety of the more than 15 heads of state who will be in the country for the summit.
We don't want any head of state to come and get an accident in Ghana. I remember an ambassador, a Russian ambassador, came to Ghana and had it was not very palatable for us. So we do not want any head of state to get involved in an accident that is preventable. We put in all measures to make sure that Ghanaians are not unduly inconvenienced. But we also have a stake, all of us, not only the police. The country has a stake in the protection of the lives of the presidents who are visiting us. And therefore, we need to do a little bit of sacrifice. We cannot say that we'll give you 100% convenience, but we want the Ghanaians to bear with us. It's just a matter of 48 hours, and things will be over.
He, however, explained the road will not be blocked throughout the day.
One of the major roads that will be used, the Independence Avenue. So what we have decided to do is to dedicate, it's a dual carriageway. So we dedicate one part of the dual carriageway to the VVIPs and one part of it to the general public. Even there, the one part that is dedicated to the VVIP will be closed only when the VVIPs are coming out from their hotels to the conference center. Immediately they leave their hotels to the conference grounds. We'll open the roads for people to use. And then we'll target the time that they will close. and then we'll revisit the arrangement that has been put in place.
He reiterated an earlier call for the public to park their low-occupancy vehicles and patronize more mass transport options.
So we are asking the media to collaborate with us, sell the message to the general public, and let them sacrifice a little for just 2 days. I mentioned earlier on that if it is possible, it's an advice I gave, but I think some people are not taking this lightly. Park your private vehicles and join the public transport for 2 days. That will save you from probably rushing your vehicle into an accident. That is what I thought as a police officer. But it appears that people, it didn't sync well with people, and they didn't understand why I should say people should park their vehicles. It was just a suggestion that I was given.
Gifty Andwapia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
ACP Awuni was addressing the press at the Flagstaff House here in Accra and will have to still remain at the presidency as the ECOWAS task force working on a single currency for member states. Well, they have presented their recommendations to the president as chairman of ECOWAS. The vice president, Kwesi Emisa Arthur, who received the recommendations on behalf of President John Dramani Mahama at the Flagstaff House, implored them to deliver within the time as stipulated. Gifty Andwapia has more.
A task force of ECOWAS Monetary Cooperation Program, chaired by Ghana's Finance Minister Seth Tekbe, also has membership comprising Niger's Finance Minister, Central Bank governors of the 8 member states, the West African Monetary Agency, as well as representatives of the President of Ghana and Niger. The job of the task force is to rationalize institutions and revise a roadmap to the ECOWAS single currency program.
The heads of state agreed to set a goal for 2020 to meet the convergence criteria either before or by that date. So the work of the task force is to look at the actions that will be required. So there are 2 elements. First are the details of what has to be done, which is a revision. You'll recall from the presentation of our own budgets here at home, we often present the primary and secondary criteria, and that's the first element that was reviewed. The committee also reviewed institutional arrangements and their strengthening, and the third element was a roadmap, to achieve this goal.
An extraordinary session of heads of state and governments in October last year appointed Mahamudu Issoufou of Niger and President John Mahama to oversee a speedy creation of the common currency for ECOWAS. Vice President Emisa Arthur expressed confidence in the expertise available to expedite action.
Now we brought the governor for the BCIO so that we together form a strong monetary union. We should not exceed the mandate that the authority had given us, that the full union would be in 2020. And I know that we agreed on that. So I see that WAMI and WAMA are also here, and I know that we have the technical expertise within these 2 agencies to be able to work and achieve the 2020 target.
The recommendations come after the task force held its second meeting here in Accra. Details of the recommendation were, however, disclosed to the Vice President in a closed session. Gifty Andwapia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
The Customs, Excise and Preventive Service, that is under the GRA, is asking motorists to carry photocopies of papers covering their vehicles to avoid any inconvenience if they are stopped for checks. SEPS officials are stopping motorists on some major roads and demanding their custom papers. The news team has learned this forms part of government's directives to check persons who are evading duties and taxes. Some drivers in Accra, however, expressed some unhappiness about the way SEPS officials were enforcing the new directive to check vehicles' custom papers. They're worried they could lose vital documents in case of theft. In response, the Deputy Commissioner in charge of Communications and Public Affairs at the Ghana Revenue Authority, Kwesi Opong Damwa, has advised motorists to carry photocopies of the documents in compliance with the directive. The Bank of Ghana has defended a recent air freighting or airlifting of millions of dollars to the Black Stars when they were participating in the World Cup in Brazil, explaining that though it contravenes the country's banking laws, it had its blessing. Well, the action, which made Ghana the subject of international ridicule, has been condemned by some professional bodies who believe government was not setting a good example. Central Bank Governor Dr. Kofi Wampa, however, says government secured the necessary exemption. Waivers, he says, are granted in peculiar situations such as the computation of custom duties in dollars granted the Ghana Revenue Authority. The reports say between $3 million and $4.5 million was flown out. The governor could not confirm the said amount. Meanwhile, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has raised its key lending rate, the policy rate, from 18 to 19%. The decision, the MPC explains, is as a result of the elevated risk to high inflation following persistent fiscal and exchange rate pressures.
What was the figure, Alex? Was it $3 million?
I don't know. Please, can you ask the government how much they No, because government have accounts with us. They have accounts with other banks as well. They withdraw monies out of the Bank of Ghana. If they withdraw money, I wouldn't know how much they flew to pay the DC. But let me say that these laws, if you look at the Foreign Exchange Act, the Bank of Ghana has the power to give exemptions in situations that demand it.
The decision by government to fly the cash to pay the Black Stars appearance fees at the World Cup, as far as the Ghana Bar Association and Institute of Chartered Accountants are concerned, was ill-advised, especially at a time when the central bank's first measures imposes a cash withdrawal limit of only $10,000. But the Bank of Ghana says it reserves the right to grant exemptions.
We give exemption to banks occasionally, oil trade and so on. So there are areas that when we see that it will affect the economy, if we don't, we will do that and monitor the situation.
The governor cited the exemption granted to the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority to compute duties in dollars.
The issue is that the imports are in dollars. They have to convert that dollars at an exchange rate into cedis in order to charge the duty. Everywhere, that is what happens because you are importing the goods from abroad. They are valued in foreign currency and then they are converted into cedis. Whether the duties are charged on the dollar amount before converted into cedis or converted into cedis before they are charged, you will get the same results.
Dr. Kofi Wampa was sure the bank will review their policies after the economy experiences some stability. Abigail Adamakunchi for Joy News.
Well, he was addressing the press during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Bank of Ghana, and already the committee has raised its key lending rates. The policy rate is now from 18 to 19%.
EC made it clear that inflation, which is now 15%, is likely to return to the target band of 9.52% by the last quarter of 2015, barring any significant shocks. The committee also admitted that pressures on the cedi still persist, although it has observed some moderation in the pace of depreciation on a month-on-month basis. It said the continuing fiscal and exchange rate pressures are worsening the inflation outlook. Thus, the decision to adjust the policy rate upwards to 19%.
Some of these policies will initially raise that. They will raise the cost of credit, they will increase the lending rates and so on. But I'm saying that these are not permanent policies. They will be reversed once we get the stability. And if you look at economic theory and the practice, when you have a lot of liquidity in the system, you need to raise the cost of it to reduce the demand, and so that those who have the liquidity would be able to invest. In other words, you want to sterilize. The central bank wants to sterilize that liquidity, and the only way you sterilize it and avoid the consequences of that liquidity affecting your inflationary outlook and so on is to raise the cost.
Dr. Henry Kofi-Wampa maintains, although the FREX measures are working, the intensified speculations on the currency depreciation is further causing its fall.
Even if you say the cedi is going to depreciate, I do my best to put a figure to it without any basis. You get what? Someone can stand up today and say the cedi will depreciate there will be 5 cedis to the dollar by the end of the year. If you ask him where he gets that 5 cedis, he can't tell you. I'm saying that's a type. I don't. If the guy comes out and says that, well, he believes that because of the lack of liquidity and so on, the cedi may continue to be under pressure and therefore may depreciate further. I don't have any problem with that. I'm saying putting figures on it that you cannot really defend or tell us where you got those figures from.
The Bank of Ghana is, however, optimistic. The cocoa syndicated loan and the Eurobond issuance estimated at almost $3 billion, and the coming on stream of the new oil and gas fields would significantly improve market conditions in the second half of 2016. Abigail Adamakunchi for Joy News.
Well, and we'll have to go, but before we do, it's been 5 days after the disappearance of hip life artist Castro and his female companion Jane Bandu. The chief executive for Adan, John Ahotu, says there's still some hope the musician and his accomplice can be found alive. Well, that's it for the news we have. Before we go, though, a recap of our top stories. Pharmaceutical companies, they've threatened to stop supplying drugs to patients on the National Health Insurance Scheme. The University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAC, will join striking polytechnic lecturers to protest over the scrapping of book and research allowances following announcement by the Education Ministry. The current allowances for the 2013-2014 academic year may not be paid, and police have urged the public to cooperate as impending road closures from today during the ECOWAS summit could result in some inconveniences for the motoring public. That's it for the news we have for the morning. Next, we bring you the sports highlight with Benedict Osu. Do stay on. We'll be right back.